Stephen Hadley is a former national security advisor to President George W. Bush. He's now a principal at Rice Hadley Gates, an international consulting firm, and he joins us now from Washington. Stephen, you helped President Bush try to broker a two-state peace treaty between Israel and the Palestinians. Secretary Kerry also wants a two-state solution and is frustrated by Israeli settlement activity, saying it jeopardizes peace. How can that be overcome?
We made an effort under the Bush administration to broker peace. We did not get it. Secretary Kerry has made a Herculean effort. He also was unsuccessful, and I think what you saw yesterday was venting his frustration over that failure, his frustration with settlement activity, which he believes threatens the two-state solution. One of the problems, I think, and I think something that may characterize a different approach under the Trump administration, is that there are settlements and there are settlements. There are settlements that are on land, admittedly in the West Bank, that are west of the barrier wall constructed by Israel, that are on land that even most Palestinians assume that as part of a final state solution will be part in Israel. And it's difficult for Israelis to understand why they could not continue settlement construction on that land. On the other hand, there are settlements that are east of the barrier wall on the West Bank, portions that anybody would assume would be part of a Palestinian state. Their settlement activity is much more problematic. And I think what you may see is the Trump administration beginning to make that kind of distinction, which was at the heart of really the Bush administration approach and reflected in an exchange of letters between President Bush and Prime Minister Sharon in 2004.
Yeah, this conversation has been going on for such a long period of time. And every time a new president comes in, there is opportunity, but there's also discussion about how the last administration didn't handle things maybe particularly well or what could be done better. Can you just break down for us, though, why the United States and the United Nations get so involved in what Israel is doing within its own country, and maybe what potential Donald Trump has once he takes office in terms of dealing with the UN?
It's an issue that is a festering issue that for a long time was used by countries, by Arab countries in particular, as an excuse for not doing more to meet the needs of their own people, quite frankly. It is not, I think, as central to the issue of overall peace in the Middle East, given what's going on in Iraq and Syria and the rise of al-Nusra. But it is a barrier to improved relations between Israel and Sunni Arab states, moderate Sunni Arab states in the region. Israel would like to have much more above-board cooperation between Israel and these states, but the failure to have a political process between Israel and the Palestinians is a barrier to that. So it still has salience. It still is an issue that needs to be resolved. And, of course, whoever resolves it is clearly on the road for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah,
so there are lots of incentives to try.
Now, there is a peace agreement announced today by Russia in Syria, negotiated with Turkey, Iran, and some of the opposition forces, excluding some as well, and excluding the United States. What do you make of the timing of this, the fact that Russia is more influential in Middle East politics, and that President-elect Trump has chosen Rex Tillerson as his Secretary of State, someone I know you have endorsed?
Yes, I think Rex Tillerson will be a terrific Secretary of State and will be great help to President Trump. What we have, I think, announced based on the press reports is a ceasefire agreement, supposedly endorsed by the Syrian government and by a number of the opposition groups, not all of them. It excludes ISIS and al-Nusra, of course, the terrorist organizations in that region. We will have to see whether that ceasefire agreement holds up. It is apparently to try to set up a peace conference, if you will, in Astana, Kazakhstan next month, at which the parties will be invited. So far, the United States has not been invited. I think the reason is, quite frankly, that the the organizers of this peace initiative, Turkey, Russia, and Iran, are present on the ground in Syria, are taking an active part, and the United States has really tried to stay outside of the Syria conflict. And if you stand outside of the conflict, you don't have much leverage, and you're not going to have as much influence at the peace table. That's just the reality.
And I misspoke there. You're right. It's a peace treaty or a ceasefire. They hope to get, of course, to a peace treaty at some point.
Exactly.
Very quickly, before we have to let you go, I want to ask you about the Obama administration is ready to retaliate against Russia over its meddling of the U.S. presidential election. President-elect Trump has said, though, we should just move on. How would you advise Mr. Trump in this situation and really others dealing with Russian threats?
Look, you know, the dilemma of dealing with a state like Russia, where is really that there are areas where we have common interests, and we should try to work together in those areas where we can, where it's in our interest to do so. There are areas where we have differences, and we should not be shy about standing on our principles and standing up for those principles in areas where we have difference. The trick is, can you manage the differences in such a way that they don't prevent you to cooperate in those areas where we can? I think that's a formula that prior administrations have adopted. It's a difficult line to walk, and I think that's the challenge for the Trump administration.
All right, Stephen Hadley, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.